And I'd like to introduce Helen, who will introduce our session for today. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's China, 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 and we read about it all the time, both in terms of its exports and imports and its effect on the economy and its effect on the economy of the world. And we're lucky to have with us today Helen Jang, who is going to speak to the issue of China and the European Union. Helen is no longer what we call an ABD, all but dissertation, because she successfully defended her dissertation just recently, and it was, I guess the word is approved. Helen, I'm not sure, but it was successful in any extent. She is a senior instructor in the Department of Political Science. And as I said, her focus today, and she's taught on this subject also, will be the trading partnership between EU and China and the effect of China on that partnership. And I think we're very lucky to have this discussion today because it's very, very timely. And with that introduction, I will turn the presentation over to Helen.
Thank you for a great introduction, and then I congratulating my defense. I'm very happy about it, and I'm really honored to present some of my work in front of this audience, and I really appreciate that. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully, it's working. Today, I mainly aim to talk about EU-China relations. At least in the field of political science, EU-China relationship, this topic has been neglected because many scholars mainly focus on EU-United States relations or United States-China relations. Those are the main topics before. But I would love to talk about more details about like EU-China relations today, because EU-China relationship, we by the news or media, very emphasizing like how their economic cooperation is going well, something like that. However, those are relationships, they both pose great opportunities with each other of cooperation. At the same time, they also put a lot of challenges against each other together. So I wanted to present both the directions, both perspectives together.
Helen, may I interrupt you for 1 minute?
Yes.
For less than a minute, actually.
Uh-huh.
Could you talk a little bit slower?
Oh, okay.
You're not talking to students, you're talking to a more elderly population.
Okay.
Some of them have hearing issues.
Okay.
Thank you. If you talk a little slower, it would be a lot better.
Okay, I'll try to talk slowly. Sorry, I'm a fast talker, but I'll do my best. So, okay. From this graph, it's not anything new that EU improved the economic interdependence level with China. So China is one of EU's most important trading partner. EU's second export destination is China, and China is also EU's first importing country. So in terms of economic interdependence level, China is very important trade partner of EU. At the same time, EU is also a very important partner to China as well. Then where their relationship started it, I think limestone, very important key moment is 2003 when they agreed upon EU-China strategic partnership. Their formal relationship started in 1985. But during 1989, Tiananmen Square incident, the relationship got really cold, and then it slowly recovered. When after 1989 Tiananmen Square incident, EU imposed an arms embargo on China since Tiananmen Square to condemn Chinese behavior at the Tiananmen Square in 1989. But the relationship slowly recovered. And then in 1998, they started to have an annual summit with each other. In 2003, finally, they decided to agree upon comprehensive strategic partnership. So they aim to deal beyond the trade and investment issues. They wanted to promote cooperations to handle global political and security challenges, such as regional security, nuclear non-proliferations in North Korea, and then climate change issue together, and then eradicating poverty, especially in Africa. And in 2003, around the time, they both concerned about United States unilateral use of military force in Middle East. So at the same time, and the EU aimed to induce a more open, democratic, and politically liberal China. At the time, not right now, I highly doubt about right now, but at the time, EU aimed to transform China into democratizing China at the time. So they both agreed upon many points, and then they made this strategic partnership in 2003. However, those strategic partnership is not really easy to move forward because of the different political values. As we all know, China is an illiberal one-party authoritarian state. It does not tolerate any challenges to its authorities and power. And then it prioritizing political stability, industrial development, and national unity and social cohesion. So of course, there's no democratic election. And then in terms of human rights issues, the Chinese government put a lot of restriction on it, and then prioritizing state's power over many issues rather than individuals, and then has a very little independence of judiciary. These pose a great dilemma to EU because China's domestic human rights violations, like it literally against all the norms and values that Europe represented until now. So they cannot just, but if they push their human rights norms to China, they may lose an important trading partner. So at the same time, they cannot just maintain silence. So EU's inconsistent policy actually damaged its soft power so far. And then China's lack of transparency makes its intentions and capabilities very harder for European leaders to understand. So there are definitely big understanding and trust issues between China and EU in terms of political values. And then between them, they also do not really agree upon geopolitical interests and priorities. China's main security concern is that they aim to expanding its influence over East Asia and want to counterbalance the United States and want to recover Taiwan and then resolve maritime issues such as South China Sea and East China Sea, and then preventing a collapse of North Korea. These are the top security foreign policy concerns. But what about EU? EU has a very different concern, such as counterbalancing authority with Russia and refugee crisis from Middle East, and the handling on economic and political situation in Ukraine and regional stability in North Africa and Eastern Mediterranean region. These are way more important priorities compared to East Asia or Taiwan. And then they also have a very different visions of world order. So EU and China has a very different perspective on state sovereignty and humanitarian intervention. EU think that they are necessary, like humanitarian intervention under certain circumstances, very necessary to prevent human rights abuses. but China strongly promotes non-interference policy. It stems from its own colonial experience. After Opium War at late 1800, then China, mainland China was occupied by Western colonizers. Germany, France, like those are European power, actually colonized in Japan as well, colonized mainland China. And then Chinese still remember those times as 100 years of humiliations. So because of this colonial experience, they believe that other countries should not intervene their own country's affairs. And of course, this also can be used to avoid outside criticism on its domestic political system, and then secure energy resources. And then basically for China, when China is imposing new rules to international community, basically no string attached to any sort of China's financial assistance to other countries. For example, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, AIIB, or Silk Road Initiative, Silk Road Infrastructure Fund. Those are the mainly organized by China and running by China. When other countries are looking for some loans from these organizations, China doesn't ask any like conditionality, unlike IMF and World Bank. That's a good comparison between Western system versus China oriented system. So we can call it Beijing consensus. So China attempted to achieve its economic development without following the Western free market democratic model. So try to find an alternative model to the world. Even for, I think in terms of Europe, I think that Eastern European countries could be a good target, that you don't need to strictly follow Western model, but if there's another alternative model, you can follow. Then in 2006, EU aimed to promote another agreement called New Partnership on Cooperation Agreement, PCA. You clearly wanted to link trade agreements with the matters concerning human rights, environment, sustainable development, and social issues such as Taiwan. So it's actually really a big deal because EU do not want to separate those soft issues, the hard issues together. Separately, they wanted to combine together and make a deal with China. And then there are a lot of unresolved economic issues between EU and China, such as market access, investment, intellectual property rights, government procurement, environmental and energy clauses. A lot of issues that remain. So EU wanted to solve this issue through this new agreement. However, China aimed to avoid most difficult and relating to norms and values and dialogues on such areas as human rights. China wants to avoid those human rights issues, and China doesn't want to talk about any detailed economic clause which may harmful to its potential economic growth. So after the Lisbon Treaty in 2009, the PCA has been on hold. I think technically it's failed. And then since 2003, the EU and China, they both pursued a strategic plan, but this is way like the level of integrations or cooperation is way below the PCA level. And then there's no legal bindings. There's no legal bindings for the strategic plan. Meanwhile, China pursues divide and rule tactics. So China divided Central and Eastern or Southern European countries from the developed Western countries. And then they're really focusing on those countries, and also initiated a new framework called 70+1 framework. 70+1 framework is that basically China invited those 17 Eastern European and Balkan countries, and then they discuss economic cooperations regularly, and then they can ask for more loans from China, and then they can discuss investments, opportunities, and so on. They kind of in regional, so also international initiative organized by China. And what happened after 2008 global financial crisis? EU share the concern that China may not really follow the WTO's all the rules, especially dumping, anti-dumping clause. So they aim to protect EU producers from Chinese cheap manufactured products such as steels or those things. But of course, still their dilemma, especially after 2008 financial crisis, because as an EU level, they all want to protect EU producers, but at the same time, individual like national governments, they want to get some support for financial rescue plan from China, because especially Eastern and Southern European countries, they suffer a lot from global financial crisis in 2008. Because of that, China can provide some rescue plans for those countries, and then they aim to get some, even though those interests are conflicting with the EU general interest. So those dilemma, economic, political, or global like a strategy, everything very much conflicting with each other. Meanwhile, I think one of the, probably you heard a lot about this One Belt, One Road initiative, because it's one of China's, I think the first global level project. It can also call New Silk Road Initiative, and then initiated by Hu Jintao, but it's expedited current leader Xi Jinping very eagerly. So they wanted to create an economic belt linking China with the Mongolia, Central Asia, Russia, Iran, Turkey, the Balkans, and Central and Eastern Europe, ultimately Germany and Netherlands. These two countries are ultimate destination for this One Belt, One Road initiative. And there's also called Silk Road, which China aimed to link the southeast some part of China with the Southeast Asia, Bangladesh, India, basically through Indian Ocean, and then passing through Persian Gulf and the Mediterranean. Ultimately, also it leads up to Germany and Netherlands. But these are the really gigantic infrastructure plan, links China to the Western European countries. So more than 60 countries joined this project already, and then Asian Infrastructure Bank plan to support more than $65 billion in initial capital. This is a really initial level. China invested more until now. And then Eastern European countries aim to be part of this project and get some more investment and loans from the Chinese government. So one of the good example could be Hungary-Serbia Railway. This is a flagship project of the 17+1 framework and One Belt, One Road initiative. The China Railway International Corporations and China Railway International Group established a joint venture with the Hungarian State Railways to construct the 350-kilometer high-speed rail routes connecting Belgrade and Budapest. So eventually it's gonna link to Jang, like western part of mainland China, and the Belgrade in Serbia. So construction should be complete by 2023. So this sounds all nice, and then it will eventually help to promote more trade between China and East Asian countries with the European countries, especially Eastern European countries, and it's gonna be really nice new infrastructure railway. However, there are a lot of criticism also happening because 80% of the loan basically came from Chinese Exim Bank, and then basically to Hungary need to pay back this 80% of the entire loan to China eventually. So even though China say, oh, there's no string attached, and you can develop your own country's infrastructure based on our money, but eventually they all need to pay back. And then, of course, China has a priority. So it doesn't give that much benefit to Hungary because Belgrade is not a really like an ultimate destination in terms of China's, in terms of Hungary's transportation network. But at the same time, the railway also constructed mostly by Chinese companies. So it gives an opportunity for those Chinese companies to improve technology rather than Hungary or Serbian companies. So One Belt, One Road can give a lot of opportunity to those European countries. I'm not saying it's only Eastern European countries, where a lot of Western European countries also joined the One Belt, One Road initiative to get some investment from the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. So it gives a lot of opportunity, but at the same time, there's a risk because eventually they need to pay back. And then it also gives chances to expand the Chinese influences in Europe. And then we are not so sure what's going to be the consequences about it. So this is general kind of introductions, like what kind of political and global strategical tensions between EU and China, and at the same time, a lot of how much economic opportunities can originate from these two entities' relationship. I wanted to discuss both too, but at the same time, I want to introduce one of my empirical research. So I eventually wanted to know, then China's money, like China's trade and investment, all these, what are is there any foreign policy consequences for the EU? That's my ultimate question. Descriptively, okay, we can see that, yes, China invests a lot, and then EU try to accommodate with China, so they cannot pursue very serious legal framework with China to protect human rights. Instead, they voice down their partnership level with China. I get that, but that is really statistically even significant. I wanted to test that way. So is an EU country that more asymmetric, relies on Chinese investments and trade more, and they're more likely to be aligned with the Chinese foreign policy in the UN General Assembly? How to measure foreign policy compliance is a very difficult. It was a very difficult question. So we tried to measure it by how much they agreed upon China at the UN General Assembly. That was our original idea. So I'm not gonna go too much details of a statistical model, but I just wanted to emphasize my key variables only. So my dependent variable is that index of voting cohesion, like how often those European countries votes align with China, whether they agreed with China or they disagree with China, or they just abstain from the voting. So those are the ones that we wanted to measure. And then trade interdependence. So what are the percentages of percentages of trade volume between China and then certain European country? That's one thing. And then the One Belt, One Road membership, whether that country really joined the membership, or that country also joined that Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank membership. These are the key independent variable. Bottom line is that we want to measure that whether the trade interdependence gets deeper, or whether China invests those countries more, then those countries change their behavior at the UN Security Council, UN General Assembly, and they follow China's voting behavior. That's what we want to know. And then the result is a little bit inconclusive, but at least we can say that if the EU country is not a member of Asian Infrastructure Bank, then the country's voting cohesion with China would be 0.22. But if the EU country is member of Asian Infrastructure Bank, then the voting cohesion would be 0.25. In other words, if the countries join the China leading Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, then the country is more likely to vote like China at the UN General Assembly. So this is pretty strong result we can find. So our main independent variable, like trade dependence, we couldn't find the significance yet, but we still can believe that our current result demonstrate that the EU membership in China lead investment organization does increase in voting cohesion on human rights issues as well. So China money has a power, and then eventually China's investment and China's increase in trading volume eventually will increase those European countries voting foreign policy compliance with China. So they vote as China wanted. that's the kind of initial finding we could find from our empirical result. Of course, they're far away to go to develop this research more, but that was our interim result about that. So as we can see here, China has China and EU, they're both posing great opportunities, at the same time great challenges. And then, of course, I do not have a really right or wrong answer about like what EU should do, but at least it's important to really understand that, okay, they're economically more integrating with each other, but at the same time, they couldn't really make a agreement on how they're going to deal with their different political values and then very different global strategical priorities, and then especially China's domestic human rights violations, how they're going to deal with it. There's no consensus whatsoever yet. So that will be potential big challenges in future. Yeah, this is my presentation for today, and I really appreciate any kind of comment or question or feedback. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for Helen?
I do. John Reiskin, go ahead.
Yeah, this idea of picking certain countries was, how much is this undermining the European Union? Or how much do you think it will undermine the cohesion of the European Union? On one hand, and the other thing had to do with the debt that is being incurred by Greece and other countries to China, because as you pointed out, the loans are not interest-free, and I don't know the time dimension of when they need to be repaid. So if you'd address those two questions, I'd be interested.
Thank you for the question.
Good talk. It was really interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm gonna go with the payment issue. So China usually posts payback in 30 to 40 years. So it sounds very like a really long term, but eventually, as you said, there's interest rate. It's not free. And then eventually they all need to pay back. So that'll be really potential big issue for the EU countries later. So especially if EU countries like Greece, they got the money and cannot pay back, then EU is supposed to help Greece to pay back. That's gonna be a really big potential question. And then EU countries itself, they're already suffering from their own internal cohesion issues because they are all very different countries with each other. Then China basically adding more complications here because some countries wanted to ignore human rights violation issues, obviously, but some countries cannot just ignore. So, and then especially the country has more strong ties with the United States, they wanted to raise their voice more harshly to China. So there's a lot of discrepancies, and then China is definitely, my personal opinion, I really don't think it's a good factor to promote the EU cohesion issues. It's definitely another complication part for EU in general. Thank you.
Thanks.
Izzy, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for your talk. It seems to me,
Speak up, Izzy, please.
it seems to me from everything you're saying, it's that the thing is that the Western countries have established a certain standard of living, and to maintain that standard of living, we have to charge more for our products. Whereas China can raise their standard of living because they're so much lower than us by producing products at a lower level than we produce it, but that still raises the current standard of living of the Chinese. So how does that get resolved?
That's very good fundamental questions. I always also think about myself. I think definitely you're completely right. Like Western society, especially Western European country and the United States, like basically set up the certain level for standard of living, or kind of end goal of a modernization, such as like that. But China is still far behind about it. And then China definitely has a huge potential to, it's already great power, but can be even bigger great power if all the population in China, mainland China, getting richer and achieve a certain level of living standard. I think it has a legitimate, China's government has a lot of legitimacy on that, and then they're trying their best to really promote that way. And then I really don't think the international community can really hold on anything about that because it's China's own rights because they want to develop that much. So yeah, but I don't know how in the meanwhile how we're going to deal with other issues such as environmental climate change or even like human rights, like or equal development within the Chinese, equal development within mainland China. How we're going to deal with it, I'm not so sure about that yet because yeah.
Okay, Helen, there's a question in chat. I don't know if you can see it. I don't want to get this name wrong.
Okay.
Did I hear you say that the Greek port of?
Oh, yes. Thank you for the good question. So yes, Greece sold that port to the port of Piraeus to China. So technically China owned the port. And then that became a really key port to construct that one belt, one road from mainland China to Europe. And then I think this incident, I call it incident because it's such a big decision, but Greece, I believe, couldn't have other options at the time. But that actually rang a bell to many European countries. And then after this incident, actually, at least for developed European countries, they try not to sell their infrastructure companies to China because that really rang the bell because the people can really see that potential danger because China literally running and owning the port, which is central part in Southern Europe. So yeah, definitely big issue.
And then the other question with that says, what implications does that have for cruise lines? Does that?
I mean, as long as it's, I don't think China's make any big differences in terms of cruise lines or sea lines of communication, major shipping lanes. I don't think there's going to be any big changes in terms of that. But like many scholars, including me, the concern is what if there's any kind of emergencies? So hopefully there's no big conflict between China or any other countries. But if there's any kind of military emergency situation, China can use those ports as a strategic location. Then it's gonna be, then they could put some embargoes and then anything can happen. But the regular time, peaceful time, I don't think there's gonna be any big differences in terms of that.
Thank you. Rick, go ahead.
Thanks. When we look at the problems of the ports in Los Angeles, it's a signal to us that the US supply chain is deeply integrated into China. And I'm wondering to what degree the EU supply chain is integrated into China and what implications does that have on both sides for their ability to push their foreign policy to levels of a certain amount of conflict?
That's a really good question. Thank you. Thank you. So like definitely there's I think still United States and China do supply chain kind of integrations way more deeper than the EU-China level, but still there China also EU and China they both there's especially China EU really heavily rely on raw materials and the first level kind of products on China lot. And then China, they manufacture and send it back to Europe. And then Europe is more into service and like, you can imagine like those supply chains going on there. And then that's why China is #1 importing country from EU. So that's, and then their trade deficit, it's very hard to solve it because EU heavily rely on manufacturing industry in China. So because of that, I think EU, it puts definitely, I think it puts some restrictions on EU when they wanted to speak out about China's domestic affairs, domestic issues. And then they definitely, and then that was actually a big issue because China, EU itself, they also want.
Hold on, everyone. She'll be back. Carla, what do you think? That's a good long buffer.
To
Did you-
Yeah, she looks like she's moving a little bit now. Oh,
Yeah.
here she is.
There are two questions in the chat.
sorry, something happened to my internet, I guess. So hopefully it's okay. Oh, sorry,
We're
guys.
here. We knew you'd be
Okay.
back.
So I think it potentially poses definitely restrictions on EU's promoting its more liberal democratic values to the other countries for sure.
Thank you. Ron, go ahead.
My question is regarding this Chinese investment bank. I can't remember what you called it, but the investment institution that they've developed to make these loans to the various countries as part of the One Belt project or others. In the Western capital markets, it's very typical for companies or countries to have debt. And when it comes due, there's a sort of a natural mechanism for rolling that debt over. So the idea of the debt actually coming due and having to be paid all at once doesn't happen very often. Does the Chinese bank have any policy that we've yet seen about their willingness to roll over debt?
I think because this Asian Infrastructural Investment Bank, AIIB, it's a really recent institution. I think it's officially started 2014, I believe. So it's really new. So I don't think it has a really like a detailed mechanisms of, as you suggested, like a Western European countries, they have a different rolling debt systems, like try to adapt it. But I have honestly, I have no idea because China openly say that there's no string attached as long as you pay me back. So
yeah.
then eventually that's why I'm saying like a lot of countries, they're really getting a lot of investment from China, but potentially what's going to happen because I don't think any of them really even started a repayment yet. So that's why there's no really mechanism discussion happening right now. So yeah. But eventually it's going to be a big issue. I'm totally with you. Thanks for a great question.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you.
Helen, there is a question in chat that says, did you say US is supposed to invest 65, I think that means billion, in part of this?
Right.
Oh, I want to make a clarification. So the $65 billion US dollar from China is going to invest their money already invested as an initial fund in Asian Infrastructure Bank right now. So, but United States is not joining AIIB. I don't think United States Kingdom also joined AIIB, but only few countries actually stepped out from AIIB because, of course, it doesn't make sense for United States joining AIIB because it's basically it's a competitor of World Bank and IMF. So, yeah, because this was actually happening right after United States put some restrictions on China's investment in IMF. Because if country has invested more in IMF, then they are going to have more voting power. And United States doesn't want China to have a lot of voting power within IMF. So if United States put some restrictions on China, then afterward, China decided to make its own investment bank. So AIIB, like China's largest contributors, and the $65 billion from China to the bank as an initial fund. Now it's way bigger than that.
Thank you. Back to you, Ellen.
I have a question, Helen. How does the cultural restrictions in China affect the trade relationships with the rest of the EU? If at all?
So cultural. So cultural one, I believe, okay, so China tried to liberalize its market. If it's marketable, it's capitalistic, it's pursuing money, then China usually was okay. So China received a lot of pop culture from United States, for example, or some nice like for like those pop culture or mass cultures. Or China is usually it's okay with that, but something is relevant to democracy or human rights or those kind of like culture relevant to those norms, closely relevant to those norms, of course, heavily restricted. And recently, there's a lot of one of my real concern is that Xi Jinping, the current president, increasing more controls over the society. And one of the signatures that before it was not like that, but now is that one is that they try to restrict the gay, lesbian, LGBTQ culture within China. They never officially admit that, of course, as a government level, but before they just let it happen as long as it's not really harmful to the regime's survival. But now they wanted to control that, so guys should not wear makeup on TV, like a nice way, or they should not wear a certain costume because it looks like that they're decreasing their masculinity. They really use this term as a government level. So I think those are China tried to kind of regulating those what men should be look like, what women should look like. That kind of put more regulations. I think this is a kind of dangerous sign in terms of restricting individual freedoms and societal level as well. So yeah, and it is definitely not a good sign to like deepening the cooperations with other countries, especially advanced developed and democratic countries for sure.
Yeah, I was wondering about the social restrictions and what impact that had on the trade relationships.
There's a lot of a big discussion within the EU because of the social restrictions happening in China. Certain countries are very vocal. For example, Lithuania, I believe, like those countries are very vocal that we should decrease the amount of trade volume with China because of this. China's posing more social restrictions on it, and it's something that was their reasoning. But especially as an EU level, they never happen. So because it's very difficult, they try not to engage on those social restrictions and political value issues with the economic values together. Before they tried to, but not anymore. They wanted to put it separate. So I don't think the trade itself is going to be really affected by those Chinese increasing level of social restrictions. I don't think so, because for you, the money itself is so important from China.
The money speaks first.
Unfortunately, that's very true. So if that's very clear if you compare 2006 version of the EU resolution and then after 2008 EU resolution is completely different, especially after global financial crisis. China became such an important actor, even in EU and European countries. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions either in the Oak Room or on Zoom?
Oh, Annalise, go ahead.
Well, I wish China good luck to get money back from Greece and from Hungary. Nobody else has been getting it. But I know that China is very invested long-term in East Africa, and that they are building also a new harbor in Sudan. How far along is that harbor? Do you know? The port.
I think it's under construction, but I think it's pretty getting close because China is if they wanted to do something, they're going very quick. For the military base in Djibouti, I think they constructed in 3 years, something like that. So I think port, I don't think it's going to take them much time. I need to double check with that though, yeah.
Because that's another way for the sea route.
Right. And then China is a project of power, economic and political power in Africa is way more obvious than any other region. So European countries is still kind of a new phenomenon, like, oh, China is imposing this, so we need to trip back. That's discussion is ongoing right now. But in terms of Africa, China relations, China's already such a big power there, and then they're invested so much, and then even they're now trying to improve the soft power in Africa. So I think it's
one thing they definitely do is they stay out of politics wherever they go. Politics is not an issue for China.
Yeah,
it's totally economic. But is there
exactly.
any cultural exchanges in the EU and China and or anywhere else?
I think at least China tried to improve its soft power because they also aware of that from United States experience. If they really want to be true great power, they also need to project their soft power, such as using cultural cultural power. So I think China tried to establish some Confucius Institute all around the world. Oh. So even like some privileged universities in the United States, they also have those institutions called Confucius institutions. So Confucius Institute. So through those institutes, they want to promote that Chinese as a language, and also try to teach Chinese history and then literature, and then try to boost up the Chinese cultural heritage, like how much is a long history, and then it can be contribute to your countries, like they try to do such a way, but cultural ways, honestly, I don't think it's super successful because it's a political, like culture also matters a lot. So I don't think China is really doing a good job in that way. But even in Netflix show, the Chinese show is not really intriguing. That's my personal opinion. But yeah, but China has more potential to definitely develop further about that. And then they're aiming to do so, because eventually they also know that they cannot gain people's heart just by money. Eventually need to be like a culture. They also know that how important is the culture.
Thank you.
Okay, Tom George, go ahead.
Yeah, excellent talk. I really enjoyed it. I remember reading when the Chairman Mao died and the government changed in China, that the Communist Party said that we will rule things and we will lead you all to pursue a free market economy. And I was wondering if that is still true, and what is the percentage of the people now who belong to the Communist Party in China?
Thanks for a great question. China is still a continuation from Deng's legacy. After Mao died, Deng Xiaoping gained the leadership, and then he established the new socialist country. So basically means that economically pursuing capitalism, but they maintain the one party authoritarian governments, but market-wise very liberal, supposed to be market-oriented. I think they're still very doing that. Economically, they try to maintain liberal market, and then try to deregularizing as much as possible. For that, I don't think it's really big changes. But the interesting part is that they really strongly maintain the Chinese Communist Party. That this is very different from Western historical experience, because many people become a middle income class, but they still very support Chinese Communist Party, which is one party. And then in terms of political ideology wise, China didn't lose any grip of authoritarianism. It's a very highly functioning, efficient one state government, so one party government. So and then many people still have some trust in the government and trust in the party. And that's why I don't see any time in near future we're going to see democratizing China. That's really unlikely. But still, market-wise, China wanted to promote as much as possible, because they know that that's the way of modernizing China and that becoming more developed country. So I think they tried to maintain two different lines, and then they did so far good good. They did good so far. My only concern is the current leader. He get rid of the most important clause from the Deng Xiaoping's legacy, which is that he need to step down after 10 years, but he abolished that. So like Chinese leadership itself, now there's a lot of uncertainty going on because, I mean, it's supposed like a democratic system, there's air, and then after 10 years, that person stepped down, then air goes up. So it's supposed to be like that kind of system maintained for at least 20, 30 years. But she basically abolished that. He wanted to be more like a dictator kind of shape, which is very big danger for such a big country like China. So I'm basically like, hope nothing happened, but let's see how it goes kind of mindset right now. And then, yeah.
Thank you. What about the participation of the population in the party? What percentage?
Oh, I'm not quite sure about that. I need to actually double check, but not many actually. Like I think top 10%, like, but I need to double check with that. Like a majority population has no relationship with the party. If you want to join the party, you need to prove yourself from very young, like a good grade from the elementary school, from the middle school, and participating certain political campaigns and so on. So yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
95 minutes.
Anybody else?
Presentation. I don't have any other questions from here, Ellen.
Nope, there doesn't seem to be any other questions. Last chance, folks. Okay, Helen, thank you so much for your talk today. We really appreciate your time, and we wish you the best of luck now that you've gotten past your dissertation. I know you'll be getting your title as a doctor pretty soon after graduation. But we do wish you the best of luck.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
It's
Thank
great.
you so much.
It's a great experience for me to present in front of a different audience, and I got so much interesting questions and feedback. I really appreciate it. And actually next week I have a campus visit to Atlanta, so hopefully that goes well. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Have a good afternoon.